Hey Kimberbellas, Kristen Som here. For today's challenge on the Broomhilda quilt, we're gonna start our first pieced picture blocks. So we need to pay close attention to these. There's specific cut instructions and specific information. So similar to Broomhilda, we're going to have to move the design down. So I'll show a lot of information in the video, but basically so let's start with the fabric. So we're going to start with our fabrics at 8.5 by 10.5, and as always back them with fusible mesh stabilizer of some sort. And then your batting, I think I did 7 by 9 for batting. And then we have our 3 applique pieces for our, oopsies, I just dropped one. Hold on, gotta have some bloopers, right? Anyway, so you have 3 applique pieces for our caramel apple. There's caramel apple 1 and caramel apple 2, and they are different, so make sure to use the 2 different files when you work on these blocks. So we're going to start with caramel apple 1, and we'll go through each of the blocks, but just so that you know, the blocks need to be brought down like how we did in Boulevard. So if you're quilting them, it's, in my opinion, it's pretty easy to do, because we're just going to bring in our quilting design and then bring the actual embroidery design down to where the batting line is. If you're not quilting your blocks, then you need to move your design down and follow the directions to get it a 1/4 inch from the bottom and all that. But again, if you're quilting, very easy, just bring it down to the batting line. So you can do that on your machine, or you can do it in embroidery software. I've done mine on embroidery software. I find it easier. But if you're doing it on your machine, you would just open up your quilting design and stitch that out, and then bring, or edit. You can do them both at the same time, either way. So anyway, you'd bring in your embroidery design and just move it down using the buttons on your machine to bring it down. Very simple to do. So anyway, our final cut size on this one is 6.5 by 8.5. So this one is usual. So this one's not weird at all. So that means that we want a quilting design that is 6 by 8. I've chosen Halloween 2, I think it's called. It's the busy one. I decided that I didn't want one that had to line up exactly right. So like if you were to do chevron or wavy lines or regular lines or even plaid, you'd have to line it up or just get over it, of course. But I decided to do one that doesn't need lining up. So I chose Halloween 2 for that purpose. I think spider web would work. You could do that, but whatever works for you. So you want a 6 by 8 design, and when you cut it, we're going to already do this with our quilting, but when we cut it, we're going to have our caramel apple 1/4 inch from the bottom. Square finish block to 6.5 by 8.5 with apple centered horizontally and 1/4 inch from the bottom edge of the fabric. So that's easy for us to do because of the quilting. So this one won't be a problem later as we continue on this pieced picture block project. Say that 10 times fast. So there's a couple of weird things. So like on caramel apple 2 is the same, not a problem, of course, different file, but the cutting size is the same. And then for the frog, that one we square the block to 8.5 by 6.5. There was something different. I'll have to look at that again. On the plate, we're gonna square it off to 8.5 by 6.25. So that means that we need to shrink down our size a little bit and have it lined up right. So we'll go over all of that. And then we also need 2 border blocks on this, and the border blocks are 5.5 by 6.5. Border blocks 5.5 by 6.25. So we need to shrink down, like make it narrower, our quilting design. So we'll go over that again, but for today we're just going to start with caramel apple 1, and it's pretty simple. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll go over the rest as we go. Okay, so we just finished caramel apple 1, and this is the key thing, is that you want that block, the apple, to be 1/4 inch down from the bottom. And as I said, it's really easy to do when you've got the quilting. So we've got our 1/4 inch seam there. We've got our apple down at the bottom. It's perfect. So now we're going to start caramel apple 2, and it's mostly the same, 8.5 by 10.5 fabric and batting. I did 7 by 9. And then your 3 fabric applique pieces. The only one that's different from this one to caramel apple 1 is the actual caramel piece is a little wider, if I recall. So very similar. We're going to do another 6 by 8 quilting design, and I am doing Halloween 2 on all of these pieced picture blocks for caramel apple. There are 4 applique blocks and then 2 border blocks and then the plate. So I'm going to do them all with Halloween 2. It's the one that you don't have to connect. So I think that's it, and we're ready. Hey Kimberbellas. Okay, we have our 2 caramel apple blocks done. So next up is caramel apple frog, and it's all the same as far as nothing too weird on this one. The regular 10.5 by 8.5 fabric and our batting and batting. I use Warm and Natural, by the way, if you don't remember. And we need our green glitter sheet from our embellishment kit. Don't forget to take off the top layer. I'm not gonna be able to do it with my eye. Anyway, take off the top layer of the plastic before you do it, and we will heat seal it onto our project. I'll show that later. And then 2 little applique pieces for the eyes and for where it says gulp. So one weird thing is that it says to finish it off 8.5 by 6.5, and the other 2 say 6.5 by 8.5. So it makes you think that it's the wide end, but it's not. It's the same size as the other 2. So I looked to see if there was a product update just to confirm, and there wasn't anything on this Broomhilda embroidery version. So just cut your block the regular way like we did the caramel apple blocks, and we're good to go. So caramel apple frog is up next. Let's do it. Kimberbellas. Okay, we finished our adorable frog. So cute, I love that. So now it's time for the caramel apple plate. So this one's a little weird, so we gotta make sure to pay close attention. The background fabric is 10.5 by 8, not by 8.5. Sorry, my dog's shaking. 10.5 by 8, which it doesn't really matter that much because we're going to cut it down anyway. But when we cut it down, our final cut size is going to be 8.5 by 6.25. Okay, so what that means. So what that means is that we want our quilting design to be shrunk a little bit. So what I did is I took the 8.5 by 6.5 and I shrunk it. And I finalized it at 5.75 by 8. And then that gives me my 1/4 inch on both sides and all around like we always do. But the only way to do that is by shrinking it. So you can do that on your machine. You can do it in embroidery software, whatever works. But you want to, just like how we moved the apples and the frog down, we're going to move the plate over to the batting line on the side because this one is going to be angled. So say the frog was this way, we're going to do the plate this way. All right, so we want to make sure that the plate is over on the side against our batting line. So in the directions, it tells you to mark the center and use a basting stitch and all these different things. And we don't need to do any of that because we're going to quilt it first. You certainly could, but why take out the extra stitching? So if I were you, I would just bypass those parts. That's what I'm going to do. Actually, I deleted them in software, but you can just bypass them either way, whatever works. So we're going to cut it. If you use your pop rulers, like say that you use your 6.5 by 8.5 pop ruler, then you would cut it this way and then add another 1/4 inch off of the side here down at the bottom. But again, it'll be easy because if you change your quilting design, then it'll be easy to see where we're gonna need to cut it because we're gonna still get our 1/4 inch all the way around. So you do need to make sure and shrink your quilting design for this one. I hope this is making sense. And then we have one fabric piece, one applique. So I think that's it. Let's get started. One other really quick note, when you look in your pieced picture blocks file for this caramel apple plate, there is a caramel apple plate and a dessert stand plate. So just make sure to use the right one. The dessert stand plate is for us later. But so for this one, make sure you've got your caramel apple plate. And like I said, adjust the quilting design so that we can cut it correctly. Here we go. Okay, we got the caramel apple plate done, and like I said, you just want to squish it, and I'll give more details, but that worked out perfectly. I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance there and on that side, and it's all lined up just right. So that worked out well. So now our next task is 2 border blocks. And as I mentioned, we want those to be 5.5 by 6.25. I think it was 5.5 by 6.25. My tired eyes. It's been a long day. Yes, 5.5 by 6.25. So again, we got to squish it, our quilting design, just a bit. And these are just border blocks, so they're perfectly plain. I cut mine larger, and then I'll cut them down after I quilt them and the batting. So 5.5 by 6.25, and again, I'm using that Halloween 2, and 2 of these blocks, they're going to go on the side of the plates, and that's it. Here we go.